Hi, I'm Martin Osborne. I'm going to give you a compact demonstration of the features of EconJobMarket relevant to recruiters. If you want to post an ad on EconJobMarket, the first thing you need to do is register as a user. You click here, and then you click here, and you fill out this form and submit it. The required information is pretty standard, but one point to note is that your name must be your personal name, not the name of your organization, and your email address must be your personal email address, not a shared address like recruiting@university.edu. Once you're registered and logged in, you'll get to a page like this. I'm demonstrating the system on our development server where I've created a bunch of fake organizations and users. So people with the names I've used may well exist, but I just created them more or less randomly. Here I'm logged in as Madhu Sinha with this email address. To post an ad, you need a recruiter role, and this page says to get such a role, you first have to record the institution with which you're affiliated. So I click on this link, I select the institution, say it's Cochin University. We press continue. Let's say the economics department is right. If it's not right, we click on this button and we enter the information about the department. We click save and we get to our profile. We're an academic staff member, let's say, of this institution. So we check off that option. We're not going to change our password, which we've already chosen. Everything else is right. So we press save. So now we get to this page. So this page says if you'd like to open a recruiter account for an organization that doesn't currently have one, please submit a request for a recruiter account. So we click there. Now here we have three options. The first option is to create an account that we can use to post advertisements on behalf of our own organization, which is typically the option we'll choose, but it is also possible to request a recruiter account for a different organization. If that's the case, we click here. We can also request a recruiter account for ourselves personally to hire research assistants. If we want to do that, we click here. So one reason why somebody might want more than one recruiter account is that they're not a faculty member in a department, but rather they work in the human relations division of a university, and they want to post advertisements for the economics department. They also want to post advertisements for the political science department, maybe for some other department, the business school. So in that case, they need one account for each of those organizations, and to get those accounts, they click this button here for each organization separately. So let's say I want to post advertisements for my own department. I click here, and I get to a page that asks for the URL of a web page that lists my name, email address, and job title so that an EconJobMarket administrator can verify my identity. I also have to check the details of my organization and edit them as necessary. If everything is okay, I click Submit Request. I get to a page that confirms that my request has been received, and there's a link on that page that allows me to view my request. When my request is approved, I'll be notified by email, and when I log in, I'll see this page, the main page for my recruiter role. I'll talk later about the items in this menu, but first let's post an ad. I click on the Ad Posting button and get to this page. I choose the type of the ad. Let's choose a free minimal advertisement. And then I have to enter the details of the ad. The title of the ad should include the job title and the field of specialization, if appropriate. I then choose the position type. I can choose more than one, if appropriate. And the field of specialization, again, I can choose more than one, if appropriate. Now I enter the start date for my ad. The ad will start being displayed on this date or on the date we receive payment, whichever is later. In this case, we're posting a minimal ad which is free, so the ad will start exactly on the date we specify. If I wish, I can also enter a target date for applications before the application deadline, which could be the date I plan to start reviewing applications. Then I enter the application deadline, which must be the same as the deadline stated in the text of my ad. I also enter the date my ad will stop being displayed, which is typically the same as the deadline date. Now I have to enter the text of my ad. I can either create it in this window using the tools here, or I can create it in another application and paste it into this window. If I paste in text, it'll be automatically converted to a standard style later in the process. You'll see that when we get to it. Let's say I paste in my text. This ad is quite short. Yours could be much longer. Take a look at the ads that are posted to see what organizations typically include in ads. I now have to choose the number of references, or recommenders as we call them in the EJM system, that each applicant is required to name. The default number is 3, and then I have to enter some parameters of the job. The degree required, the start date, and the job duration. Next, I select the location of the job. If it's the same as the location of my organization, I don't have to do anything. And then I come to the important step of specifying how I will collect applications. The first, and we think the best option, is to collect applications on EconJobMarket. Doing so has several advantages. First, it's the easiest one for applicants and recommenders who will be able to reuse files uploaded for other applications. Second, we verify the identity of all recommenders. For each recommender, we check that the email address in their account is the one given for them on an official web page of their university and not, for example, the address of their best friend. Third, collecting applications on EconJobMarket will allow you to use our sophisticated system for evaluating and rating applications. Another option is to collect letters of recommendation on EconJobMarket, but applications elsewhere. Third option is to collect neither applications nor letters of recommendation on EconJobMarket, in which case you need to specify how you're going to collect applications. We strongly discourage collecting applications by email, or even worse, by postal mail, both of which are very inconvenient both for you and for applicants. So I'm going to collect applications on EconJobMarket. Now you need to say whether you're going to interview applicants remotely by video, in which case you need to specify the estimated date when those interviews will take place. Next, I choose whether I'm going to process applications, review applications, using the EconJobMarket system, which is free, or a third-party system. I'm going to choose EconJobMarket. Now I choose whether I'd like my ad to be displayed on another site as well as on EconJobMarket. Currently, the options are the Econometric Society site and the site of the Society for Economics Research in India. Note that redisplay on the Econometric Society site entails an additional cost. Let's ignore the next field, which is generally not relevant. Finally, given that we're collecting applications on EconJobMarket, we need to create an application form. In this section, we can choose a template for that form. Whatever template we select, we'll be able to change it as we wish. It will just be a starting point for us. Let's select the first option, the default, cover letter, CV, job market paper required, and click Continue to go on. Here's the application form we created. The page has two parts. At the top, a list of documents, and at the bottom, a list of questions. These documents are the ones in the template we chose. Each document can be required or optional, and we can delete any of these documents by clicking on these buttons. We can add a document here. So perhaps we don't want this additional paper, but instead we'd like applicants to submit a research statement, perhaps just optionally. Each question can be optional or required, and if we wish, we can restrict the answers so that they can be seen only by managers of the account, not by reviewers. We can edit each question, and we can add a question of various types by selecting the appropriate item in this menu. When we're happy with the form we've created, we can preview it and save it. Doing so takes us to this page, which gives us an opportunity to customize the message an applicant sees after they submit an application. By default, they see this message. But if you wish, you can add your own message and, in addition, if you wish, a URL. Perhaps, for example, you want every applicant to complete your own survey after they submit their application. I'll choose not to add any message of my own and click this link. We're now back on our main page where the ad we've created is listed. The last step is to confirm the ad. Click here to begin the confirmation process. The first page you see shows how your ad will look when it's displayed on our site. This is the point I mentioned earlier when the system converts the text of the ad into a uniform format. If the conversion process has introduced any errors into the text, you can correct them by editing the text in this box. If the ad has no errors in it, click this button to continue. This final step in the process of creating an ad is important. You need to check carefully that both the text of your ad and your application form are correct. Once your ad is posted, we can make no changes to the application form or to some of the parameters of the ad, and we impose charges for changes in the text of the ad. After a job candidate submits an application, there should be no possibility that the basis for that application changes. So please spend some serious time verifying that your ad and application form are correct. If you're not going to personally review applications, please ask someone who is going to do so to check that the documents and questions on your application form are the ones they want. The system will warn you of some common errors. For example, if you fail to ask for a job market paper, you'll see this warning. If you fail to ask for a cover letter, you'll see this warning. If you haven't asked the applicant for the title of the job market paper or appear not to have done, then you'll get this warning. But obviously the system can't determine whether the documents you're asking for are really exactly the ones you want, so you need to check the form carefully. You can use these buttons to view your ad and application form and to edit them. When you're satisfied that everything's right, check this box and click this button. If you've chosen an ad for which there's a fee, you'll be taken to a payment page. The ad I created is in the minimal category, viewable only by logged in users, and is free of charge. So in this case, we get directed back to our main recruiter page. Here is information about the ad I posted. At this point, you may wish to solicit applications to invite specific individuals to apply for your job, and EJM has a system for tracking these invitations, but I'm not going to discuss that system here. At some point, you'll start receiving applications. Then your page will look something like this. In this case, you've received 2 applications. To view the applications, click on this text. Here you see the applicants' names and affiliations and their primary fields. To view a full application, click on one of the names. Here we see Alex Moreno's application. Here are her references. 2 have already submitted letters and we're waiting for the 3rd. And here are the files she has uploaded. Click on the name of a file to view it. Here is her answer to the question on your application form. And here is a button that allows you to record a comment about her application. When you're ready to change the status of her application, you can choose one of the options on this list and click the Set button. But probably you don't want to evaluate all the applications alone. So let's go back to your main Recruiter page and click on the Users tab so that you can add some users to your account. You see yourself on the list of users and a warning that the account has only one manager, which is not a good idea. If you leave your organization, the organization will no longer have access to the account. So let's add some more users. I go to the top of the page and click this button, Add Users, and then paste in the email addresses of the users I wish to add and click Next. I get to a page that tells me that Sandeep and Roshan are registered as EconJobMarket users, and I can add each of them either as a reviewer or a manager, and optionally also as a bill payer. I can also choose whether to allow them to automatically see the applications for any position that's posted, the default option, or to not be able to see any applications until a manager authorizes them to do so. I'm going to make Sandeep a manager and Roshan a reviewer. In both cases, I took the default option regarding the visibility of applications. I now see Sandeep and Roshan listed here, and if I scroll down, I see the third email address I entered, which is not associated with any EconJobMarket user. I have the option to send a message to this address asking the owner to register as a user and let me know when they've done so. When they notify me, I'll need to return to the Add Users page and submit their email address again. I've finished adding these users, so I click the Done button, which takes me back to the page of all users where I see the ones I've just added. I added Sandeep as a manager, which means that by default she has all possible permissions. If I click the Permissions button for her, I see all of these permissions, and if I wish, I can remove some of them. For example, perhaps I don't want her to be allowed to solicit applications, so I click this link to turn that permission off. Notice that one of the permissions that she has allows her to manage the users for the organization. That means that just as I can change Sandeep's permissions, she can change mine. If I wish, I can turn off that permission for her, but it might be a good idea to keep it on so that if I leave the organization, there's still someone who can manage the users for the organization. To close the permissions list for Sandeep, I click the Permissions button again. I added Roshan as a reviewer, which means that by default, she has only one permission, namely to review and rate applications. If I want to give her another permission, I can click the appropriate link to turn that permission on. For each user, there's also a button labeled Restrictions. If I click that button, I get to a page that allows me to restrict the user from seeing the applications for specific positions. So far, this organization has only one posting, so that's the only one on the list. I can either restrict the user from seeing all applications for the position by checking this box, or I can restrict them from seeing only specific applications by clicking this link and then checking one or more of the boxes here. If one of the applicants is the reviewer's spouse, I might want to restrict them from seeing that application, for example. Let's go back to the Users page. Notice that if I click the Restrictions button for Sandeep, I get a warning. Sandeep can manage the users for the organization, so she can undo any restrictions I impose on her. To make the restrictions effective, I need to remove from her the permission to manage users for the organization. Any user with the Review and Rate permission can look at any application and submit comments on it, but I might want to assign specific reviewers to specific applications. To do that, I go to the page listing all applications for my position and click the Assign Reviewers button. I select a reviewer, check off the application or applications to which I want to assign them, and click the Assign button. Their name is shown beside the application to which I assigned them. On the page that they see, their name will be highlighted. Rather than assigning reviewers manually, I might want to assign them automatically as applications arrive. I can do so by going to the listing for the posting and clicking the Automatic Reviewer Assignment button here. Reviewers can be assigned randomly to applications or can be assigned by field, in which case I first have to specify the field for each reviewer. Now, I probably want my reviewers not only to submit comments, but also to rate applications. For them to be able to do so, I need to first create a rating scheme and then attach the scheme to a particular position. To create a rating scheme, I go to the Rating Schemes page, click the Create Rating Scheme button and enter a name for my scheme. I'm just going to call this Rating. I'm going to accept the default settings for these two fields. I'm going to have a rating scheme with 3 levels, and I'm going to allow short comments to be submitted together with ratings. We can, if we want, check this box so that our scheme is automatically attached to every subsequent position we create. I click Continue, and then I have the option to enter labels for the 3 levels of my scheme. I'll call the levels Good, Reasonable, and Reject. And I'm going to display those labels instead of the ratings, instead of the 1, 2, 3. I click to save the scheme, and here it is listed. To attach the scheme to my position, I go back to my posting. I click on the Rating Schemes button. Here I see the scheme I just designed, and I click Attach. It's now attached to my position. Now on the page listing the applications for the position, I see a link to a ratings page. On the ratings page, I see a notice that my ratings are currently visible only to me. When I'm ready, I'll click the link to make them visible to all managers and reviewers in my organization. To rate an application, I click on the name of the applicant, study the application, presumably, and then choose a rating in this list. Let's say we make this reasonable, and we note that the job market paper is impressive. Then we click the button Submit and Close Window to go back to the list of applicants, and we see our rating here. Let's rate the other applicant also. Maybe this applicant is good. We submit that, and here I see my rating of each candidate. Now suppose another reviewer has submitted some ratings, then the page might look something like this. If you click a highlighted rating, you'll see the comment associated with it. Notice that you can sort the list by various criteria: the name of the applicant, the average rating, the highest or the lowest rating, or the rating of a particular reviewer. At some point, you'll be ready to select applicants to interview. Go to the Applications page and click on this link, Interview Groups. To create a group, click on this link and enter a name. Let's say you're going to use this group for empirical candidates. Then choose the type of the interview, either in person or by video, and enter some information about the venue. You don't need to enter a URL at this point. It might be, for example, that you have different URLs for different candidates. But if you have the same URL for everybody, then it's a good idea to put it here. To save the group, click the button, and here we see our group. The distinguishing feature of an interview group is that all the applicants you assign to it will be able to choose from the same set of interview slots. The interviews within a group don't have to be held on the same day or in the same location or have the same interviewers, but any applicant assigned to the group will be able to choose any slot you create for the group. To create slots and select interviewees for the group, click this link. Let's first add some slots. Click this button and enter the date of the interviews, the start time for the group, the end time for the group, the length of each slot, and the length of the break between slots, if any. Then click this button to create the set of slots. That takes us back to the page for the interview group where we see the slots we just created. Now let's add some interviewees. Click this button and enter the first few letters of the last name of an applicant you want to add to this group of interviewees. Click the search button, locate the interviewee, click select, and they've been added to your list. Do the same thing for the other applicants you want to add to this group, and then click the button Return to Interview Schedule, and you'll see the 2 interviewees on your list. The last step is to invite each interviewee to select an interview slot. Select the interviewees you want to invite, I'll choose both of them, and click this link. You have an option to first send a message to yourself as a test to see what it looks like, but let's not do that. You need to choose the date by which each interviewee must select a slot. If they're not interested in an interview, you may want to know that soon so that you can add another applicant to your list. You also need to choose a date after which the interviewees cannot change the slots they choose. Presumably, you don't want interviewees changing their slots 5 minutes before they're scheduled to start, so enter an appropriate date here. The default is 1 week before the start of the interviews, but you can change that date if you wish. Finally, if you wish, you can enter an email address to which a notification will be sent whenever an applicant signs up for a slot. But you don't have to enter such an address. I'm going to leave the field empty, so I won't be notified. Click the Proceed to Message button, and you'll arrive at a page where you can edit the message to be sent, and when you're ready, send it. At the top, the applicants to whom the message will be sent are listed, and here is the text of the message. Each applicant's name will be substituted for this string when the message is sent, and this button will be active. If everything looks good, click the Send Message button. That will take you back to the page for your interview group, where you'll now see a record of the invitations you just sent. Let me show you how an applicant chooses a slot. Here's the message that Alex Moreno will get. Here's what it will look like if she reads it on her phone, which is more likely. When she clicks on the button, she is taken to the EconJobMarket page to log in. And when she does so, she lands on her interviews page. She first has to choose the time zone she'll be in on the day of the interview. Let's say she'll be in New York then. Then she clicks on this button and sees a calendar that lists the slots that you have offered her in her time zone. The first slot is a little early, 5:30 in the morning, so perhaps she chooses this slot, which puts it on her calendar. If she returns to her interviews page, she sees the details listed, the time in your time zone, as well as the time in her time zone. To reschedule the interview, she can click on this link, which takes her back to the same calendar, and she can choose a different slot if she wishes. Goes back to the interviews page, and here's the new slot she chose. Returning to your page for the interview group, we see her listed in the slot she chose. There are a few other things you can do on this page. You can assign an interviewee manually. If you click on this link, you'll see why that's not a good idea. You can also assign interviewers to interview slots. Let's check all of these slots. Click this link and assign Sandeep and Roshan to all of these slots. If we decide that in fact Sandeep cannot make this slot, we can remove them by clicking that button. We can also notify the interviewees of the interviewers by selecting the interviewees and then clicking this link and then clicking this button to proceed to the message and subsequently send it. Back on your main recruiter page, you can click on this link, Interview Schedules, to see your current schedule. Returning to your page of applications, let me say a few words about these buttons. This button allows you to download groups of applications in various formats. This button allows you to assign statuses to groups of applications: under review, rejected, interview, visit, and so on. This button allows you to see some statistics about your applications, and this button allows you to send messages to groups of applicants, including rejection messages. Finally, the link here goes to a page where you can set various preferences for your organization. If you have any suggestions for improvements or new features, please let us know.